So one of the things that happens during incursions is that I get contacted a lot by commanders asking what they can do to help. And if they are a combat pilot themselves, this is generally not a problem. But outside of that, well, it gets a lot trickier. Even on the Skunkworks Discord, some of those with less combat ability that would still like to contribute to the war efforts and are keen to be involved have trouble finding things to do. I'm going to focus this video around AX because that is where my experiences lie for the most part, but this problem can apply to many other areas of Elite. Frontier's answer to my above problem would be to go rescue people from damaged stations, and this can be fun to do, but only for so long. And at the heart of the question is a problem. Logistics roles within Elite are almost non-existent, owing to the fact that transfer of resources between players is generally kind of difficult, with the transfer of pragmatic resources being all but impossible. Trading commodities is possible, sure, but there really are only 3 commodities that serve a function outside of being purely a trading token. Tritium is fuel for carriers. Metalloids can be used to summon Thargoids to an instance, and low temperature diamonds are essentially a de facto medium of exchange between players. And that last one is a little questionable too, seeing as any high priced commodity can fill that role. But beyond these commodities, nothing else really serves any purpose. When a non-combat pilot asks me what they can do to help with our efforts, to be part of this great adventure we run, I really have nothing to offer them. Go fill a carrier up? This is both unsatisfying and also kind of redundant. Tritium can be bought so cheaply that it really isn't a problem to keep the carrier fleet fueled. The real pragmatic resources are materials. And for us in the AX domain, these are not so much about engineering, but for synthesis. And talking about materials opens up a whole kind of worms, so if you are of the leave it alone disposition, you might want to skip ahead. Materials make little sense by most logical measures, but they are not really meant to. I am a multi-billionaire with my own private carrier, and yet I cannot find a supplier for iron or mechanical scrap that will take credits. You know, like how all businesses work. Hell, with the levels of wealth many commanders have, they would just set up their own supply chain to gather and sell materials, completely bypassing and most likely putting out of business the material traders insisting on barter only. The role of materials in-game is to extend playtime, and at that purpose they certainly do excel, taking several hours of time for each commander in our squadron to fill the necessary materials for AX combat. But I want to make the case for material trading between players, or failing that, an alternative system for resupplying ship munitions mid-combat. So let's imagine you could sell and buy materials from other players, with no regulation on price. Just go with me for a minute. One thing this would do is create a player economy completely separate from the background simulation. I would personally be willing to pay quite a high price for materials, and having market forces affect the price of these items would certainly make for an interesting dynamic. This alone could add a lot of depth to player interactions, which in the game right now are fairly limited and ultimately inconsequential. We could see entire industries in-game building up from the gathering of materials and their sale. This kind of change would also open up the possibility of logistics roles for your group or squadron, with non-combat players now able to contribute meaningfully to the efforts of your group. There are potential downsides to this proposition. It would potentially devalue engineering. Depending on how you feel about materials in general, this could be a good or a bad thing. Material trade for engineering is something I personally do not have a lot of love for. In the real world, cash would suffice for all of these transactions after all. But I know many commanders would be against a change, and those objections would be based in reasonable arguments. It could also open up the avenue for players trading real-life currency for in-game rewards, which most definitely already occurs. I know for a fact there are individuals out there offering things like credits or unlocking ranks for cash. But material trading may open up another avenue for this kind of behaviour. But I would also like to propose a step further, as this method, while a step in the right direction, still only involves gathering and selling. Elite currently lacks a true player economy because while items can be bought or sold for profits, there is no way at all for players to add value to something. Raw materials cannot be turned into practical tools. Labour does not produce a product. The middle part of the player industry is absent. We can gather things and we can sell things, but in between there is a step missing. So how about rather than tradable materials, the materials can be synthed into tradable reloads? Let me explain. So instead of using mods to synth ammo or module refills directly into the weapon or module during a fight, which carries a ton of problems anyway, like losing premium ammo if you store the weapon in question, how about we have a new inventory category for pre-made synthesis products, essentially an ammo cache of sorts. When you synth something, it gets added to this ammo cache and can be used by yourself in a fight, or traded with another player for cash or barter. So you could fill this up with pre-made reloads before going into a fight, or synth reloads if you have the materials for it mid-fight, but also trade away items in the reloads cache to other players for a price you set. This prevents anything that could impact engineering being traded, instantly creates both a player economy of purpose, with players able to create something of value from raw materials, and at the same time opens up meaningful logistics play for squadrons and other organisations, with non-combat players able now to fulfill an important role in the supply line. There are loads of unanswered questions in this idea. How much could you store in the reloads cache? How does it affect overall reload capacity if the materials are also still available for synthing? But I am confident these aspects could be balanced, and in the process, a new role within Elite created. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.